Greatest Britain. It's been a deeply moving day for all of us, I think, of grief, but also gratitude and celebration of a life extraordinarily lived. It's also been spectacular, hasn't it? Without any question, a moment of great history, a day I don't think any of us will ever forget. Well, back with my panel. Just didn't want to leave it there, because I wanted just to get your final recollections, really, or thoughts about the Queen. As we move now to a new era, a new monarch, a new country in many ways, how do you think history will remember her?
I wonder if she realised how much she was loved.
Yes.
I think she probably realised she was very much respected and admired, but I wonder how much she realised she was loved. And I think when you listen to everything that's come across in the last 10 days or so, that's come across very, very strongly from people right across the United Kingdom.
I mean, I feel grateful, Richard Tice, that we had the Platinum Jubilee, because I was told, I don't know, back in February, March, that there were serious concerns about her health and there was a chance she may not make the Jubilee. And I was told this by somebody who knew, who was hearing this from senior family. And so they were all incredibly relieved that she did actually hang on long enough to enjoy what turned out to be a fantastic celebration of her reign in her lifetime, where she was still there to understand what we thought about.
But there was a sense, actually, Piers, that she rallied. She rallied for that extraordinary occasion, in the same way I think she actually rallied in order to bring in the 15th Prime Minister. I think that we will always say she was always there. She was the constant. And we now know just how much she was admired all over the world.
Yes, I agree. What are your final thoughts about the Queen?
Oh, gosh, so many. I mean,
it's hard to crystallise it,
I think
it?
It's very hard to crystallise. I also think it's going to be quite interesting how everybody feels tomorrow and in the coming days, because we've had this huge... first there's the shock, then we've had this 9 days. People have joined that queue, which became like a pilgrimage, which was sort of quite staggering, really. I spoke to a woman on radio on Saturday who was 70 and had done 12 hours. And I said, were you tired? Didn't your feet hurt? And she said, no. The spirit just carried me through. She adored the Queen so much. She's from Jamaica. And I think it's going to be quite interesting how this week goes, because there is going to be, quite understandably, a moment of sort of dip.
Do you know what I thought?
And I think particularly maybe for the royal family, and you wonder with
they're
Prince
going to have,
Charles,
I think they have
that
now
moment
a week
of faith is going to, his faith is going to carry him
But I think
through.
they now have a week of private mourning where they just disappear now from sight, and they have a chance to mourn as a family. I mean, I thought that the queue in many ways was quite interesting, actually. Even Americans on American television today were talking about the queue, and they know what the word means. They say line, but the queue has become this world famous thing. This British queue for the British monarch.
I described it as the queue of all queues.
Yeah. But there were several things about the queue which really moved me. One was just hearing all the stories from the people being interviewed all the time. I found it quite mesmerising. Secondly, seeing them, how they actually paid the respects. I found that live stream mesmerising. I just used to watch it for like half an hour every now and again. And you just see people either nodding or muttering thank you or curtsying, whatever it was, just so simple, but so respectful and so moving. And then there was the last person in the queue today, who turned out to be a woman who was in the RAF. We're not quite sure what she did, but I'm sure the papers will tell us tomorrow. And she had been twice. So she'd gone through once and then gone straight back to the back of the queue and queued all over again, and was actually the last person to come in. And I thought, well, if that doesn't epitomise the Queen's stoicism, determination, respect, dignity, all those things that the Queen represents, then nothing does.
But don't you rather hope that in the same way when we went out and clapped the NHS, there was a moment of real unity? And I hope, and I remember keeping that sort of inside me for quite a long time afterwards. And I still think back, I do hope that we do take something more profound from this.
I totally agree.
As a country, we came together, and that stays with us in some way. We don't all just go back where everyone's being horrible on social media and everyone's going, everything's completely awful and this country's awful. I do think
why don't we just ask each other?
She wanted to leave us something.
Well, I think, Reverend Greenshills, to end this part of the show, I just think if we all just take a moment every now and again and say, well, what would the Queen do in this situation? What would she say? What would she feel? We won't go far wrong, because her basic gut instinct for what represented the greatest of British values actually is what made this country great. And we've deviated way too far from what she stood for. And I, by the way, include myself. I'm not claiming to be some virtuous person here. I think I've been watching it going, what can we learn? What can we learn? And actually, it's going back a bit, actually. Reset and go back to those great values. Thank you to my panel. And what an honour for you, and how brilliantly you delivered it, and how extraordinary that you were with the Queen and that last weekend. And you must have just remarkable memories you'll never lose.
Never forget. Yeah.
Yeah, great to see you. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And thank you both for coming in.